We turn to Brett McGurk, White House National Security Council Coordinator for the Middle East and North Africa. Good to have you here, Brett.
Thanks, Margaret. Great to be here.
We're watching the breaking news. This is a deal you negotiated. What can you tell us about how these three women who've been transferred to the Red Cross are doing?
Well, I just confirmed with my Israeli counterparts that they're now in Israeli custody, so this has just happened. Look, I know they're alive. I'm sure they've been held in deplorable conditions over 470 days. But the Israelis have a very good system to take them into their care, and they're going to get the care they need and be reunited with their families.
It appeared that even up until this morning, it was in question whether Hamas was going to go through with this. The Israelis said they hadn't handed over the names of the captives. Why? And do we know much about the well-being of the three Americans that are still being held?
Well, look, this deal was negotiated over a year for good reason. It's a detailed, complex arrangement to leave nothing to chance. And even up to last night, I was up until 4 o'clock in the morning when this finally went into place to make sure that everything went according to the plan. Hamas owed the list of the three names. That had to happen for the ceasefire to go into effect. That was delayed a couple hours. It eventually happened, and now we have the news today. You have a full ceasefire in effect in Gaza. You have about 800 trucks of aid getting into Gaza today.
800?
800 trucks of aid should reach Gaza today. And you've had the three girls now, again, reunited, hopefully with their families, and they're now in Israeli custody.
So the UN says an average of 72 trucks per day went in December, and that's been the case in January. Is there even the capacity for the Israelis to search these trucks and allow in that food? Do you expect 800 trucks to make it into Gaza today?
That's why I've been in the Middle East for the last month nonstop to make sure everything is ready to go. This was not put together in the last week. This has been put together really since May when President Biden laid out this framework. He developed this framework with the Emir of Qatar and with the President of Egypt, President Sisi. He announced it to the world in May. It was unanimously endorsed by the UN Security Council. We thought we were close in August, Margaret, and then we had 6 hostages killed in a tunnel underneath Rafah. I was just in your green room talking to the mother, or speaking with the mother of Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, who was killed tragically in August. It was that incident in August when Hamas killed those hostages that we decided to flip the script. There was not a deal because Hamas would not agree to release hostages. We supported the Israelis in going after Hezbollah. They took out Hezbollah. In Lebanon. We have a ceasefire in Lebanon. We have a new government in Lebanon. That isolated Hamas. Iran is in the weakest position it's been in the Middle East in decades. So we went back to the table in December. Hamas, for the first time, was ready to accept the May framework and begin to release hostages. It wasn't until early January that they actually approved the hostage list, and that's how we got to the result today.
But do we know Keith Siegel, Sagi Chen, and Idan Alexander, how they're doing?
Keith will come out in phase 1. Sagi will come out in phase 1. Idan was a uniformed Israeli soldier. He is phase 2, but we are committed. I think you just heard this from Mike Waltz, and we've been working seamlessly with the incoming team. I think this is a testament to President Biden and to President Trump, allowing us to work together. I worked with Steve Witkoff over the last week. Again, a partnership, I think, historic to help get this done.
Trump's envoy.
We are committed to getting Idan out as early as possible. I spoke with Adi Alexander, Idan's father, just last night.
So Prime Minister Netanyahu described this overnight as a temporary ceasefire, and he says he has permission to begin fighting as needed. Do you believe he sees this as just a strategic pause, or that he actually wants to end this war?
The way the deal is structured, on day 16, the negotiations begin for phase 2. Phase 2 will begin a negotiation for the exchange of soldiers to Palestinian prisoners, but also the conditions have to be set for phase 2. And we support the Israelis in making sure those conditions are set so Hamas can never come back to power in Gaza. Hamas can never again threaten Israel from Gaza. Those conditions have to be set. We in the Biden administration have been very clear. We want to see this deal reach all 3 phases. Every hostage come home. I think the Trump administration very much shares that objective. And the template, the roadmap, again, that the president set out in May, this was the roadmap ultimately to ending the war, getting everybody home is the only way to do it. That roadmap is now in place. We have a ceasefire today in Gaza, and we have a good chance to get every hostage home, and we got to do everything we can to make that happen.
Well, Hamas, according to Secretary Blinken, has recruited almost as many new militants as it has lost over the course of this war. Blinken said that this week.
Hamas has been significantly decimated. Its leader, Yahya Sinwar, was killed in October. Without that, we would not be at this deal. Hamas on October 7th was an organized military formation. It invaded Israel with 3,500 troops in military formations, combat brigades. It is now no longer able to do that. It does not have military capacity.
But that argues that Israel has done something that may backfire on them in terms of the humanitarian situation that has allowed Hamas not to lose support, but to continue to recruit?
To get I've worked closely with my Israeli colleagues. I've spent hours with Prime Minister Netanyahu. This is a deal that he fully supports. They agree there's a moral debt to these hostages. You have to get them out. And Israel's also going to make sure that it protects its national security. And we're going to make sure we did that. You know, Margaret, we got this deal without that wider Middle East war that everybody was predicting. Americans did not get drawn into a wider Middle East war. We defended Israel from Iranian missiles. We supported Israel going after Hezbollah. We supported Israel going after Hamas. We have defanged Iran's proxy networks around the region. And that led to the isolation of Hamas to actually get this deal today. That's how we got to this point.
Okay. I have to take a break here, Brett, so don't mean to cut you off. But we will have more questions, but we have to take a quick break. Stay with us. We're continuing our conversation now with Brett McGurk of the National Security Council under President Biden. Brett, I just want to pick up where we left off. Just this past week, President Biden gave one of his last interviews, and he shared a private conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Take a listen to it.
I said, but Bibi, I said, you can't be carpet bombing these communities. And he said to me, well, you did it. You carpet bomb, not his exact words, but you carpet bomb Berlin. You dropped a nuclear weapon. You killed thousands of innocent people because you had to in order to win a war.
And President Biden went on to say that's why the entire UN and international order was created, to stop that from ever happening again. How much do you think Israel's standing in the world has been damaged by the conduct of its military?
Well, Mark, that was a conversation early on when the debate was whether or not the Israelis should go in on the ground. And we had a debate with them about that. Ultimately, we supported them, and they were right, because Hamas was living in 400 miles of tunnels underneath Gaza. There was no way to root out Hamas without going into Gaza. And frankly,
but he was talking about dropping bombs.
But you can see
buildings.
Hamas, but I'm just going back to what the conversation was about. It was about how this was going to go. And look, we've worked very closely with the Israelis. Too many people have died in this war. That's why we worked so hard to get to where we are today with a ceasefire. The ceasefire today, this framework, this roadmap the president laid out in May, was the only way to end the war. And the only way to end the war was, frankly, with massive pressure on Hamas and knocking out the other proxies that were supporting Hamas. I just have to emphasize this again. Yeah. When Hezbollah was firing on Israel every single day, it was Hassan Nasrallah's position that they would not stop shooting at Israel and making northern Israel a no man's land until Israel accepted all of Hamas's terms in Gaza. Israel had to knock out Hezbollah to get this deal. That's what happened with the ceasefire at the end of November. That's what opened up the space to get this deal. It's been a brutal war, but to end it, we had to get the ceasefire deal. And to do that, we had to support Israel and back them up, and we did.
Well, we will see if the ceasefire becomes an end to the war and there's more diplomacy ahead. Brett McGurk, thank you for sharing the details.